Unit development. There are three topics mentioned in it. One is the concept of development. Second is the role of hereditary and environment in the development. And third topic given is the theories of development. Two theories are mentioned. First theory is the Erikson's theory, and second is Jean Piaget's theory. Jean Piaget's theory is cognitive development theory, and Erikson's theory is psychosocial theory of personality development. In this video, we will discuss Erikson's psychosocial theory of personality development. Before we discuss the Erikson's theory of personality development, it would be better if we discuss in brief the Freud's theory also, because Erikson was a trained psychoanalyst and there are some commonalities in both the theories, because he was a psychoanalyst and he retained the basic concepts of psychoanalysis in his theory. Freud, he gave the psychoanalysis theory of personality. His psychoanalysis, we can say there are three main components. One is mind, then the personality components. So mind, personality components, and personality development. He says that mind has three conscious levels. One is the consciousness itself, which means things that you are currently aware of. Like for example, you are watching this video, so you are currently aware of what is being discussed in this video. So that is consciousness. And then subconsciousness. Subconsciousness is something which you are not currently aware of but can be brought into your awareness. For example, what you ate yesterday in breakfast. And third part of the mind, he says, is unconscious. Those are the things that you are that are unknown to you, that you are not aware of. And of course, when you are not even aware of things that exist in your mind, so you cannot bring them into your consciousness. Second, he says the components of personality. He says there are three components of personality: id, ego, and superego. It is biological, innate motives or urges. It also includes the desires, sexual desires, and it is largely unconscious. So they exist in your personality, and they have the biological or innate origins, but because it is largely unconscious, so you are not aware of, but they influence your personality. And second part, he says, is the ego, which is your understanding of reality and yourself also. So that component is ego, and it is largely conscious. And third part, he says, is the superego, which is largely subconscious, and it includes do's and do nots. Do's are the things that you were rewarded for, and when you do such things, you feel pride. And do nots are the things that you were punished for, and if you do nots, then you feel the guilt. So as per Freud psychoanalysis, mind is has three types, and that personality components have three components. And what next he says is the personality development. He says that the personality development occurs through 5 stages, and he says at each stage the psychic energy, your mental energy or psychic energy attaches to some erogenous zone. Erogenous zones are the part of the body from which the child derives pleasure. So he says that at each stage the psychic energy attaches some erogenous zone, and it leads to conflict between these three components of personality, because it wants to pursue the activities related to that erogenous zone. Like for example, in his theory, the first stage is oral. So in this stage, the child derives pleasure from putting things into mouth. So not just breastfeeding, but he likes to put things into his mouth. This Freud says that child does this because it gives him pleasure. And like for example, breastfeeding, and the conflict occurs. Like conflict in this stage occurs over the weaning, breastfeeding. When the mother wants, when the child has grown, say like 1 or 2 years, and the mother wants the child to stop breastfeeding, but child wants to continue it. So there is some conflict over there. So he says that at each stage such energy, psychic energy attaches to some erogenous part of your body, and then conflict occurs, and successful resolution of this conflict will give you the healthy personality development, and unsuccessful resolution leads to unhealthy personality development. Now next is the Erikson. Erikson also talk about the conflict, and he also says that the successful resolution is of the psychic conflict is essential for the optimal development. But the difference is that Freud says that the source of conflict is biological or sexual. So that is why Freud's theory is called psychosexual, because there is a psychic conflict and the source is biological or sexual in nature. So that's why it is psychosexual theory of personality development. But Erikson differs with the Freud here. He says that the source of conflict is social. Source of the conflict is social environment, and that is why. So there is a psychic conflict, and the source is your social environment. So that's why his theory is called psychosocial theory of personality development. For example, Erikson's first stage is a conflict between trust versus mistrust. So Erikson's first stage is the trust involves the conflict between trust and mistrust. In the first stage occurs in the first year of the life, and the infant who is less than 1 year of age is helpless. He is dependent completely on the mother for the fulfillment of his needs. So he has to choose between trust and mistrust, that whether to develop an attitude of trust or mistrust towards world and people, whether to trust the people, whether to trust the world, and this depends on the mother's response. If the mother's response is reliable, consistent, and if the mother fulfills all the infant's needs, like the physical needs of hunger, etc., and the love, care, security needs, then the infant comes to develop the attitude of trust towards the pupil, trust toward the environment. It is a belief that his needs will be fulfilled in the world. But if the mother's response is inconsistent, then the attitude of mistrust is developed. So such infant will be suspicious of the people, and the same attitude then is extended to the world and other people in the later life also. So this kind of conflicts the Erikson talks about. So sources in the social environment. So it is in the response of mother. So that's why it is called psychosocial theory of personality development. Other differences between the Erikson and Freud is that Erikson talks about lifelong process of personality development. He says that personality development occurs throughout the life, whereas Freud says he focuses on the childhood experiences. Freud says that personality development is the result mainly of the childhood experiences. So Freud's theory involves 5 stages, which are up to the age of adolescence, and Erikson's theory then involves 8 stages, which go up to the old age.